Blood. So much blood. It's coating my trembling fingers as I type this, making the keys stick with each frantic press. The wound on my shoulder throbs with a burning pain that feels alien, like something is changing inside me. I don't know how much time I have left before it finds me again, before I become like it. My name is George Radcliffe. I'm 27 years old, and by the time anyone reads this, I'll likely be dead, or worse. I need to document what happened in the forests of rural Ohio last night, if only so someone might understand the horror that's spreading through this quiet heartland. It started with the screams. I had been driving for almost 9 hours straight from Chicago to visit my dying grandfather in Columbus. My GPS directed me onto a shortcut through Hocking Hills State Forest around 11 p.m., a decision I'll regret until my final breath. The moon hung full and bloated in the sky, casting an unnatural silver glow across the landscape as my headlights cut through the dense tree line. The radio had been fading in and out for miles, static occasionally giving way to fragments of an emergency broadcast. Something about staying indoors, something about attacks. I barely paid attention. Another COVID variant, I assumed. Another reason for panic that would fade into the background noise of our chaotic world. Then my engine died, just stopped. No sputter, no warning. One moment cruising at 60 miles per hour down the winding forest road, the next rolling to a stop in absolute darkness. My phone showed no signal, and the dashboard lights flickered before going completely dark. The silence was immediate and suffocating. No crickets, no wind rustling the leaves. Nothing. Just as I reached for the door handle, I heard it. A scream that didn't sound human, but couldn't have come from any animal I knew. It started low, almost a gurgle, before climbing to a pitch that made my eardrums vibrate. Then another scream answered it, closer to my car, followed by a heavy thud on the roof. I froze, keys clutched uselessly in my hand. Whatever landed had weight. The metal groaned above me. Slowly, so slowly, I tilted my head to look out the windshield at the hood of my car. Two massive, clawed hands gripped the edge of my hood. The claws, each as long as my index finger, dug into the metal like it was clay, creating perfect punctures. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then it leaned forward into the moonlight. Its face was the worst part, almost human in structure but twisted beyond recognition. The snout elongated with rows of yellow teeth too numerous to count. Eyes that reflected the moonlight like a predator's, but with unmistakable intelligence burning behind them. Patches of coarse hair covered raw-looking skin stretched over a frame too large, too powerful to be a man. But the eyes, God, the eyes knew me, recognized me as prey. It smiled. A wolf should not be able to smile. I slammed my hand on the car horn in desperation. The sudden blare sent the creature rearing back, giving me precious seconds to restart the ignition. By some miracle, the engine caught. I floored the accelerator, and as the tires screeched against the asphalt, I heard claws scrambling for purchase on metal before a heavy thud behind me. The roads were unfamiliar, and my headlights illuminated only fragments of the dense forest around me. Each turn was a gamble, each straightaway a chance for whatever was pursuing me to catch up. The GPS remained dead, my phone useless. I was completely alone. After what felt like miles of panicked driving, I saw lights ahead. A gas station, Rickman's Gas and Convenience, according to the flickering neon sign. The glowing oasis of fluorescent lighting seemed like salvation as I pulled in, tires skidding on loose gravel. The attendant, an older man with a gray streaked beard, looked up from his magazine with mild annoyance that quickly shifted to concern as I burst through the door, wild-eyed and gasping. "You need to call the police," I managed between desperate gulps of air. "There's something out there, something in the woods." His expression didn't change. He just slowly put down his magazine and reached beneath the counter. When his hand reappeared, it held a shotgun, which he placed on the counter with deliberate calm. "They won't come," he said flatly. "Not tonight." "What do you mean they won't come? There's some kind of animal attacking people." He sighed, suddenly looking much older. "Happens every 50 years or so. Nobody believes it until they see it themselves. First night of the full moon cycle is always the worst." My blood ran cold. What happens every 50 years? The Blackwood curse. He gestured toward a bulletin board near the register, covered with yellowed newspaper clippings. Started back in 1871, every half-century for 3 consecutive nights during the October full moon. People go missing, others turn up, changed. The headline swam before my eyes. Mutilated bodies found near Blackwood Creek, 1971. Savage animal attacks claim 12 lives, 1921. Beast of Ohio returns. Residents fear bloodshed, 1971. This is insane, I whispered, but the tremor in my voice betrayed my growing terror. The thing I'd seen wasn't natural, wasn't possible. The attendant, Stan, according to his name tag, moved toward the windows and began pulling down metal shutters. You can stay here till morning. These shutters are reinforced. Installed them myself after 71. They can't get through metal. They, my voice cracked. Stan's eyes met mine, grave and knowing. By midnight, there'll be more than one. Those it doesn't kill, it turns. That's how it works. As if on cue, another scream pierced the night, closer now. Stan worked faster, securing the building with practiced movements. I helped him barricade the door with shelving units while he continued talking, his voice a steady monotone that somehow made the horror worse. Local legend says it started with Samuel Blackwood, trapper who made a deal with something in these woods back in the 1800s. Got wealthy beyond measure, but the price was his humanity. Every 50 years, his curse awakens, and he hunts. Each time, the pack grows. This is crazy, I repeated, though the image of that twisted face was burned into my memory. Werewolves aren't real. Stan finished with the last shutter and turned to me. Call it what you want, curse, disease. Doesn't change what's out there. We sat in tense silence, listening to occasional howls that seemed to surround the small building. Minutes stretched into hours. Stan kept his shotgun across his lap, occasionally checking the shells with gnarled fingers. Regular bullets won't kill them, he said eventually. These are silver buckshot. Won't stop them completely, but it'll slow them down. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity, silver bullets for werewolves, but the memory of those inhuman eyes kept me silent. Around 2 a.m., the attacks began, first scratching at the metal shutters, light, almost curious, then harder, more insistent. Sniffing and growling circled the building, punctuated by occasional body slams against the reinforced doors that made the entire structure shudder. They can smell us, Stan whispered unnecessarily. The radio behind the counter suddenly crackled to life, making us both jump. Through bursts of static, an emergency broadcast repeated, "Remain indoors. Multiple attacks reported throughout Hocking County. All available emergency services are responding. Military assistance has been requested. This is not a drill. Repeat, remain indoors and barricade all entrances." Stan's expression darkened. Military won't make a difference. Not against this. A new sound joined the cacophony outside, a rhythmic tapping on the roof, claws moving with deliberate precision, testing for weaknesses. The fluorescent lights flickered, and Stan cursed under his breath. "Generators external," he explained. "If they find it." The lights went out, plunging us into darkness, broken only by moonlight filtering through small gaps in the shutters. The sudden silence outside was worse than the scratching had been. "They're trying to draw us out," Stan whispered, his silhouette barely visible in the gloom. A crash from the back storage room destroyed any illusion of safety. They had found a way in. Stan moved with surprising speed for his age, pumping the shotgun as he positioned himself between me and the storage room door. "Run for your car if you get the chance," he ordered. "Don't stop for anything." The door burst open. What emerged wasn't the creature I'd seen on my car. This one was smaller, its transformation seemingly incomplete. Parts of it were still recognizably human. A woman's face twisted in a rictus of pain as the body beneath it contorted and changed. Her clothes hung in tatters, and blood darkened her chin and neck. Stan fired without hesitation. The blast caught her mid-chest, throwing her backward with a howl that started human and ended anything but. "Go!" he shouted at me, already reloading. "Now!" I ran for the front door, fumbling with the barricade we'd constructed. Behind me, I heard Stan fire again, followed by a wet tearing sound and a strangled cry cut horrifically short. I didn't look back. The night air hit me like a physical blow as I finally cleared the door. My car was only 30 feet away, keys still in the ignition where I left them in my panic. I sprinted across the gravel, the sound of my footsteps impossibly loud in the quiet night. I was halfway there when a massive shadow detached itself from the darkness beside the building. The original creature, larger than I remembered, its proportions all wrong for either man or wolf, stepped into my path. Blood matted the fur around its muzzle, and pieces of what looked horribly like Stan's flannel shirt clung to its claws. Those eyes fixed on me again, and this time I saw recognition flare in them. Intelligence, hunger. I changed direction mid-stride, abandoning my car to sprint toward the tree line. It was suicide, I knew, running into the darkness where more might be waiting, but blind panic drove me forward. Behind me, I heard it give chase, moving on all fours with terrifying speed. The forest swallowed me whole. Branches whipped at my face as I crashed through undergrowth, my lungs burning and legs pumping on pure adrenaline. I could hear it behind me, not even bothering to be stealthy now, just crashing through the forest in single-minded pursuit. I don't know how long I ran. Time lost meaning in that desperate flight. Eventually, I broke through the trees into a small clearing dominated by the concrete foundation of what might once have been a cabin. All that remained were crumbling stone walls about waist-high, forming a rough rectangle in the middle of nowhere. No time to think. I vaulted over the low wall and pressed myself into the shadows, praying for invisibility. The sound of pursuit stopped at the edge of the clearing. I could hear sniffing, frustrated growls. It stepped into the clearing, moonlight illuminating its horrific form. Standing upright now, it must have been 7 feet tall, its proportions a mockery of the human form. It tilted its head back and inhaled deeply, turning slowly as it sought my scent. I hardly dared breathe. My hand closed around a chunk of concrete, the only weapon available. A useless gesture, but my fingers clenched it anyway. The werewolf stopped. Its massive head swiveled directly toward my hiding place, lips pulling back from yellowed fangs in what could only be described as satisfaction. It knew exactly where I was. As it started forward, something unexpected happened. Its head jerked up, nostrils flaring as a new scent caught its attention. A low, warning growl rumbled from its chest as it turned away from me, facing the far side of the clearing. From the darkness emerged another werewolf. Even in my terror, I could see differences between them. This new one was smaller, its fur lighter, almost silver in the moonlight. But most striking was its stance. Defensive, not predatory. The standoff lasted only seconds before they launched at each other. The sound of their collision was like thunder, their snarls and roars shaking leaves from the trees. They tumbled across the clearing in a blur of claws and fangs, too fast for my human eyes to follow. I should have run, should have used this distraction to escape. But shock and terror had paralyzed me, keeping me rooted to my hiding place as the two monsters tore at each other with primal fury. Blood darkened the ground beneath them. The smaller silver one was clearly losing, its movements becoming sluggish as the larger beast gained the upper hand. With a final, brutal swipe, the original werewolf tore open its opponent's throat, silencing its growls forever. The victor stood over its fallen enemy, chest heaving. Then slowly, it turned back toward me. I ran. Blind with terror, I crashed back through the forest, no longer caring about the noise I made. Every shadow seemed to lunge at me, every rustling branch the approach of another monster. Behind me, I could hear pursuit resuming, somehow even faster and more determined than before. The trees began to thin, and I caught glimpses of moonlight reflecting off water ahead. A river or lake, a natural barrier. Hope surged briefly until I remembered childhood stories about werewolves. Did water stop them? Or was that vampires? My mind was fracturing under the strain. I burst from the tree line onto the rocky shore of what appeared to be a large lake. Moonlight danced across its surface, beautiful and indifferent to my plight. No boats, no bridge, just open water stretching into darkness. The splashing of heavy footfalls on the shore behind me made the decision for me. I plunged into the icy water, gasping as it closed over my legs, my waist, my chest. The bottom dropped away suddenly and I was swimming, each desperate stroke carrying me further from shore and the horror behind me. Cold numbed my limbs quickly, but terror kept me moving. I glanced back once to see the werewolf pacing the shoreline, watching me with those terrible, intelligent eyes. It made no move to follow, but somehow that was worse, as if it knew something I didn't, as if it could wait. I was maybe 50 yards offshore when my strength began to fail. The adrenaline that had fueled my flight was ebbing, leaving behind bone-deep exhaustion and pain. My waterlogged clothes dragged at me like weights. Each stroke became harder than the last. In the distance, I could make out what looked like docks, perhaps a marina or fishing spot. If I could just reach it. Something brushed against my leg underwater. I thrashed in panic, swallowing lake water as I tried to see through the darkness beneath me. Nothing visible, but I felt it again. Something solid sliding against my calf. Not a fish, too large. Panic gave me new strength. I swam harder, no longer caring about direction, just desperate to reach any shore. The touch came again, more insistent this time, wrapping around my ankle and tugging. I kicked frantically, breaking free for a moment, but it returned, stronger, more determined. With a final powerful pull, it dragged me under. Water closed over my head. In the murky darkness, I caught a glimpse of my attacker, humanoid but wrong, with webbed hands and a face that was neither human nor wolf, but something amphibious and ancient. Its eyes reflected the faint moonlight filtering through the water, the same unnatural glow I'd seen in the werewolf's eyes. They were connected somehow, different manifestations of the same curse. I fought with the last of my strength, lungs burning for air. My fist connected with something solid, and suddenly I was free, kicking desperately toward the surface. I broke through with a gasping sob, sucking in precious oxygen as I flailed toward what now appeared to be a small island at the center of the lake. By some miracle, I reached it, a rocky outcropping barely 20 feet across, rising just a few feet above the waterline. I dragged myself onto the cold stone, coughing up lake water and shivering uncontrollably. From this vantage point, I could see the shore I'd fled from, where the werewolf still paced. On the opposite shore, lights twinkled. Civilization, safety, impossibly far away. I collapsed onto my back, staring up at the full moon that had illuminated this nightmare. My situation was impossible. Return to the shore with the waiting werewolf? Try swimming again with whatever lurked beneath the water? Or slowly freeze to death on this barren rock? As if in answer, pain suddenly lanced through my shoulder, the spot where something had grabbed me underwater. I clawed at my sodden shirt, pulling it aside to reveal a crescent of puncture marks, already swollen and discolored. I'd been bitten, or clawed. It didn't matter which. The wound pulsed with my heartbeat, each throb sending tendrils of fire through my veins. I knew without being told what was happening. The attendant's words echoed in my mind. Those it doesn't kill, it turns. Despair washed over me, stronger than the pain. I was trapped, wounded, and apparently infected with whatever curse or disease created these monsters. The night stretched endlessly before me, the moon watching with cold indifference as I curled into a ball, shaking with cold and fear. I must have passed out from exhaustion or shock. When I opened my eyes again, the eastern sky was lightening, though the moon still hung visible in the pre-dawn sky. The pain in my shoulder had intensified to nearly unbearable levels, and fever burned through me, despite my wet clothes and the cold air. Movement on the nearest shore caught my attention. The werewolf was gone, replaced by a naked man standing at the water's edge. Even from this distance, I could see blood coating his chest and face. He stared directly at me, and even without the inhuman eyes, I recognized him as the creature that had chased me, in human form, returned with the approaching dawn. He raised one hand in what almost seemed like a salute, then turned and disappeared into the tree line. I waited until full daylight before attempting to swim back to shore, terrified of whatever had grabbed me underwater. Each stroke was agony as the wound in my shoulder protested, but desperation drove me forward until my feet touched bottom again. I staggered through the shallows and collapsed on the rocky beach, completely spent. The forest that had been so terrifying at night now stood silent and ordinary in the morning light, birds singing as if the horrors of the night had never happened. With the last of my strength, I dragged myself to my feet and began the long walk through the woods. I had no idea which direction would lead to a road, a house, help, but staying still meant certain death when night fell again. Hours passed in a haze of pain and delirium. The infection from the bite, if that's what it was, spread rapidly. Veins around the wound turned dark, and my skin felt too tight, as if something inside was pushing to get out. Fever dreams plagued me even as I walked. Visions of running on all fours through these same woods, tasting blood, feeling bones shift and reform beneath my skin. By some miracle, I stumbled onto a hiking trail around midday. Following it brought me to a small ranger station. Abandoned due to budget cuts according to the faded sign, but containing a first aid kit and, most importantly, an emergency radio. The static-filled response to my desperate call was both salvation and confirmation of my worst fears. Military personnel were being deployed throughout the region to contain what they called a highly contagious outbreak. Quarantine zones had been established. I gave my location as best I could, and they promised evacuation. While waiting, I found an ancient computer in the ranger's office. Miraculously, it still powered on, connecting to a painfully slow internet connection. That's how I'm writing this now, while I still can. While I'm still me. I can feel the changes accelerating as afternoon wanes. My teeth ache in my gums. My nails have thickened, darkened. The hair on my arms seems coarser. Each symptom small, explainable, except for the hunger. A deep, primal hunger that frightens me more than the physical changes. Outside, I can hear helicopter rotors in the distance. Help coming, though I'm no longer sure if it's for me or from me. The sun hangs low in the sky. Hours until nightfall, until moonrise. I don't know what will happen when darkness comes again. I don't know if I'll remember being human or if the beast will take over completely. The old attendant said it happens every 50 years. 3 nights of the full moon when the curse awakens. This is only night 2. If anyone finds this, stay away from Hocking Hills during the October full moon. Stay away from the forests of Ohio. The legends weren't myths. The monsters are real, and soon I fear I'll be one of them. My name is George Radcliffe. I'm 27 years old, and this is my last night as a human. Authorities later found the ranger station empty, the computer still running with this document open. Blood coated the keyboard and floor, along with shreds of clothing. Despite an extensive search using infrared technology and tracking dogs, George Radcliffe was never found. 3 more people went missing in Hocking Hills State Forest that night, bringing the total to 17 over 3 nights. The official report blamed a rabid wolf pack that was supposedly eliminated by wildlife services. Locals know better. They're already preparing for the next cycle, 50 years from now, when the Blackwood curse will awaken once more. But some whisper that a silver-furred werewolf has been glimpsed in the forest during full moons throughout the year. A werewolf that doesn't attack humans, but seems to watch over them, protecting them from darker things that lurk in the Ohio wilderness. Perhaps some part of George Radcliffe survived after all.